What is going on, everybody, and welcome on inside yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast powered by STN Digital. I'm your host, David Brickley. Each and every show, we talk to the experts and get their advice on the ever-changing digital social marketing landscape. This show is no different. This is the NBA just is celebrating their 75th anniversary. Producer Will, did you see the NBA 75 commercial yet?
I did. I saw it during football last night.
Well done.
Yeah, very well done.
Well done.
Star power.
That being said, we are celebrating our 75th episode. I know we've had more of those with the panels and the mini pods, but is this our official 75th interview? I guess it is. I don't know.
Yeah, you said it right. Not the number 75, but 75th.
I think we're at 90.
Episode.
This will be our 91st overall.
Something like that.
So it's time for a drink for you, me, and Furker here at a certain point. I mean, 100 is fast approaching. So we are excited for the program. As we always do, we will start off with what number are we picking? And we're
at
celebrity
75.
ages?
I'm going to throw it to you. Okay. I think we're back on athlete numbers. I think 75 is strong enough. We're kind of getting towards.
At this point, you could just mix. Is it a celebrity age or?
Why not? Two guys that stand out, number 75, Mean Joe Green. I mean, you talk marketing, you talk NFL. I mean, one of the most memorable commercials of all time.
I like that.
And Vince Wilfork, a fan favorite who retired started a rib company, I believe.
Do you ever see that viral video where he's going against a soccer player and kicking field goals after practice?
No.
And he's nailing 35-yard, 40-yard field goals, just all toe right down the middle. I recommend you all check that out. So are those the two options?
Those not the only two, but those are the two front runners. We have Deacon Jones, Forrest Gregg, Lomas Brown, Jonathan Ogden.
Mean Joe Green or Vince Wilfork.
Yeah.
Mean Joe Green is a legend, but this is going to be the Vince Wilfork podcast right here on the Business Social powered by STN Digital. Okay, so we're excited to talk to, listen, as Laker fans we know so well one of the best marketing campaigns in maybe Southern California sports history is the "We Want Tacos" chant at Staples Center.
It's the first thing that comes to my mind.
You hold the opponent under 100, everybody gets 2 free tacos at Jack in the Box on the way home. We are going to be talking to Jack in the Box. So 2 amazing women that I met recently, Sheena Dewar. She's the Senior Director of Marketing Communications, recently promoted to Senior Director of Marketing Comms. So congrats to her. And then Morgan Higgins is the Senior Manager of Social Media and PR. 2 really smart women that work at really a fun brand, Will. When it comes to social media, they do it right and they really tap into what's raw, memes, anything that really can talk to their consumer. So I'm really excited to dig in as we've had a few, but not too many food and beverage brands on the pod.
Yeah, definitely a more household name. And like you said, they do a good job of being serious, doing memes, kind of leveraging Jack, their mascot. Yep. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
And I think they're in 22 states. They're obviously really heavily concentrated. Headquarters here down the street in San Diego. So I'll get into that with them as well. But if you've been driving, listen, I'm sure you've heard of the brand, and I'm sure you've been to their location. So excited to talk to them about what worked, what doesn't, and just get their overall advice on the industry. Sheena and Morgan from Jack in the Box right here on the Business of Social. All right, so I'm so excited to bring 2 amazing women onto the program. Sheena Dewar, she's the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications, and Morgan Higgins, the Senior Manager of Social Media and PR at Jack in the Box. Both of you ladies, welcome onto the show. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
Cool. So I always like to get started off, go broad, and then we'll get much more in depth on Jack in the Box and the food industry as a whole. But Morgan, I'll start with you. How do you approach marketing? What's your core belief on how to approach a consumer?
So I actually approach marketing. I've spent most of my career in the food industry. Before I was at Jack in the Box, I was actually at an agency that really focused on social media when it was on the rise. For food brands. So some of my bigger clients were Applebee's and then Del Frisco's. But my approach to marketing, so I've been in the social space as it has grown. So when I first started, there wasn't even anything around paid social. Yeah. It was just purely organic. So I really take marketing as how can you connect to your consumers, especially with something like Jack in the Box, like food, everyone eats food. So how do we take it outside of the food world and just connect with them through culture, through content, through everything that we do. So to me, it's about that personal one-to-one connection with our customers.
Sheena, what about you?
Yes, I can echo what Morgan said. I have grown up in food marketing. I've made my rounds in the San Diego food scene, working for Rubio's, Garden Fresh. Started with Sammy's Wood Fired Pizza, but obviously at Jack in the Box, love it here.
Nice.
But I think my approach, it comes down to a basic philosophy of know your customers and listen to your customers. Whether you do that through formal research or you do it through social listening, there's a bunch of different ways you can get to know them and what they want, and just always keep that at the forefront. I often see a lot of marketers think that they are the customer, and so they'll want to market for themselves, but you are not always the customer, the main customer for the brand that you're working for. So I love hearing from and talking to our customers.
That's funny you mentioned that, because that's a common thing with our clients too, as no offense to if somebody's 48 years old and doesn't really understand TikTok, but they say, I think that's silly. Like, that's not going to resonate. Like, yeah, that's anecdotal based on your personal perception, but a 13-year-old female in Florida really likes this this crazy thing. So that's so true. I think a lot of people fall into that trap of, well, that's lame, or I don't like that, or I don't know who that music artist is, so let's not use that for our next commercial. And, Sheena, I'm sure you can attest to that's just the wrong way to look at it.
1,000%.
Yeah.
I have an 11-year-old son, and half the time I'm like, I don't understand what you like. I don't understand what you're doing, but you know what? It is like the world. So he keeps me really real with it too.
That's awesome. So I would love to get, I guess, a little more granular into when you guys talk about, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? There's brand awareness. I'm sure there's, different apps and different incentives for your loyal customers, but also there's trying to get people to go through the drive-through or visit your locations. So from a social media perspective, we'll start there, Morgan. How do you, with all those different goals, do you just focus on brand awareness and the rest works out for itself, or do you attack each of those goals or CTAs differently throughout the year?
Yeah, great question. So we actually have two approaches to it. I mean, we are a brick and mortar store. So with COVID, we have started to expand upon our e-commerce and our digital capabilities, which I'm sure Sheena knows a lot more about, and she can talk to that. But my purpose from the social space is really, really to focus on the brand metrics that we have. So building engagement, building overall brand mentions. We track them on a annual, quarterly, monthly basis. I think it's to just overall, we talk about, saying of sales overnight, brand over time. So a big piece of my area is, how do I connect with those customers over time? How do I build the connection with them? That's going back to the one-to-one communication that I want to have with them. But how do we entertain them in so many different ways? So there's that first piece of the brand. And then there's really more recently on the social space, we've been doing a lot of the lower funnel sales driving tactics, especially around app acquisitions. Yeah. So we're really trying to build that ROI and how we can get our customers in the door. But because we are heavily brick and mortar, we have to do it through our app acquisition efforts. So it's a hybrid approach of the two, but mostly where my team focuses is in the brand space and building that connection with the customers.
And then Sheena, what would you say is the biggest difference? There's so many people that listen to this podcast that may be marketing a live sport, a musician, or most likely a product, but being in the food space as long as you have, especially in San Diego specifically, but what's the biggest difference when marketing food and beverage overall?
Oh, I mean, at the end of the day, it's that everyone could, in theory, be your customer. If you think about food, it's like, who eats? Everyone eats. Everyone needs food. But of course, there are people, who don't eat fast food or who are more, into different types of food. So we do put a filter on everything we do of QSR customers. So we use a lot of tools with our media partners, media agencies, to help filter down that huge population that could be the whole wide world. But essentially with food, what is so interesting is that everyone eats food, everyone uses food. So your customer base is so much broader than in some other industries.
What have you all found is like your avatar in terms of your average customer? Because like you said, Morgan, and I think Sheena, you said this too, like, it's not just about, okay, I like Jack in the Box, but what are all the other things I like around that, and kind of marketing towards that community, pop culture, maybe inside jokes, et cetera. So what do you all found is your avatar? Because it truly could be anybody, right?
Right. We've done a lot of work actually recently to apply what we're calling like shared mindsets. So we did some very formal segmentation that wouldn't surprise anyone about like, what is a QSR person? But then we layered on all these shared mindsets from a communication standpoint to make sure that we're building those deeper connections with people who share the same passion points as Jack. So certain things that we find are kind of innate to our DNA that we have a connection with are things like late night, like people who are up for the night. They are up for celebrating and having a good time, whatever that good time is to you. Jack in the Box can help fuel that good time because we are the one that is open and we're there for you at that 24/7, 365 experience. And then there's a couple other passion points like sports. So we know that we really over-index with people who are into sports. That comes into play with a lot of our media mix and how we buy our TV placements. And then actually gaming. And I think if you think of gaming and the idea of gaming and back to, gaming before gaming was popular, people would be staying up late night gaming and all of a sudden hunger strikes, and who was there for them? And it was Jack in the Box. And so I do believe through all the research and data we've seen that it's just something innate to Jack that we connect with gamers, and we have even before gaming was as popular as it is now.
Well, as somebody that grew up in the SoCal area, I know when I first met you all, I did mention this story of being a Laker fan. And of course, if you hold the opponent under 100 points, everybody gets 2 free tacos in the stadium to show your ticket on the way home or what have you. Talk about Morgan, brand over time, but that stuck with me as a young boy all the way to now. And that's just chanted on the broadcast and talk about just like media mentions and all that. But in terms of I guess, or executions like that, how successful have those kind of been over times that you guys have worked at Jack in the Box?
I mean, the Lakers is one of our most popular partnerships that we have. I mean, not only from a sales perspective, but what you're saying, like a brand, like we even got the chant of "We want tacos" in one of the games, I believe, and I'd have to confirm, but I believe it's an NBA 2K type of game.
Yeah.
Like, it has so much brand recognition within LA, but even outside of that, it's just kind of the core of who we are, that people love. There is a cult following to certain things, and especially around that partnership.
And I think I asked you this, so sorry for repeating yourself the first time we met, but do you guys actually see an uptick, right? Like when that game ends, those 18,000 people leave the arena, you see all the Southern California Jack in the Boxes light up with more drive-thrus in that hour window after the game, right?
We see some, they get the coupons. And so we're definitely seeing the return there.
The other one that's
awesome.
So the Lakers is absolutely used as a best in class example, not only for ourselves, but the Lakers will use that as an example to other brands of how you make a really great integrated partnership. But one that is newer for us, but we've been seeing really incredible growth over the past few years, is the Padres here in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And even with, I don't know if you've gone to Petco Park recently or played the MLB game.
Can I just say that the one time I went to a Padre game this year, it was when all their credit card machines were down, and it was mayhem. So I was like, I guess that's my luck.
You probably saw the big Jack antenna ball on the foul pole. So that's become quite popular. It's continuing to, we get asked by other, sports entities if we would do that in their stadiums. But that partnership for us has become, on its way to success like the Lakers.
That's awesome. And I think in this world of Instagrammable moments and just what's this random Jack in the Box head doing on the foul pole? I think that's really such a big thing. Even now we're getting super San Diegan on the folks here that are listening. But, Morning Glory, which is the brunch spot in Little Italy, has a gorgeous, huge red flower that kind of takes over the entire, it's a great piece of art, but that's the Instagrammable moment. That everybody's kind of I want to go there. What is that all about? All my friends are posting this, which works well.
It also just causes questions.
Yes.
I think people are just so invoked by what is that thing? What is that Jack head doing there? And so, on social, we see people tagging us in it all the time at every single game. People commenting what is this thing doing on the foul head? And I'm well, I got you all talking. That's exactly what
all
we're trying to do.
There was a great marketing stunt in San Diego, actually, a few years ago. You might have saw it. Orange Theory just painted a bunch of bikes orange and put them all over San Diego. And then people, what do I see these orange bikes everywhere? What is up with these orange bikes? And you put it in the Google and they have paid ads.
Yeah.
Join Orange Theory. So there's something to be said. I don't think enough marketers think about that. Like if we could be kind of random or get people questioning things, they'll start Googling and they'll figure it out and it'll drive them right to your pages.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you maybe kind of a silly question, but in a world full of people and ambassadors getting canceled, how nice is it to have a mascot, I guess, like Jack, and that can't get into trouble? And do you guys, from a marketing perspective, the Gecko with Geico or Flow with Progressive, how does that help? Or I guess, how do you, from a brand perspective, how does that help you, I guess, when it comes to being able to utilize that lever?
Do you want me to take that one?
Yeah,
Morgan?
go for it.
Yeah.
Well, we have evolved Jack though, because if you think of when Jack became iconic, it was in the 90s and he had an incredibly snarky, sometimes what you would now consider bully-esque personality.
Yeah.
People love to pull up this commercial on YouTube. That's Jack chasing down this guy and like literally beats him up and shoves a burger in his mouth. So we've clearly had to pivot from that because that would not fly in society today. And rightfully so, like that's just not cool.
A little bit.
And we want Jack to evolve with the times. So we've done quite a bit of work to evolve Jack. And what we've done is made him more of this like witty wingman. So he's got somebody in tow with him. So he's still getting into like some late night shenanigans. He still pokes at the competition, but it's more in a way of like in good fun. So, he's bringing the rest of you some breakfast sandwiches, whether you're the king or the colonel, because he's the one open 24/7, 365. And hey, you know what? You just wanted some breakfast and you didn't have it.
Yeah.
So it's more in like this witty wingman where he's there for a good time versus in the past, you've probably seen him be a little bit more of what would be, like I said, an actual bully. So we've had to evolve him to make sure that he was, accepting in society and that people were learning and growing with him.
Morgan, I know on social specifically, it's so difficult if you have a brand or a product that doesn't have a face or an ambassador behind it, but you can, I've seen you all, you've done some really fun things and it's nice to be able to lean on that persona when you're creating content.
Yeah, it was actually what I was going to add to what Sheena said is the fun piece of what we get to have, especially on our Twitter channel. The Twitter channel is actually @JackBox. So everything comes from the voice of Jack. So there's so many opportunities for us to just chime into other conversations that are going on, trending topics, but put a Jack spin on it that actually ends up being some of the best content that we do. I mean, you're just inserting a real person into a conversation. It just feels so much more natural. Sometimes when we're seeing other brands try to jump into other conversations, or like Sheena said, we definitely still love to poke and have fun with the competition. We definitely did it for April Fools earlier this year when, another competitor out there launched a sourdough. We were like, we're the original sourdough people. So we like puffed up our chest and we had a little fun with it. So you just have that ability to do it on social that is so much more fun and unique and relatable to the customer.
Well, I want to get, Morgan, your thoughts and Sheena this as well. If you put your consulting hat on for me for a second, you're starting a new food brand or let's say fast food or restaurant locally or nationally. Would you recommend, based on what you guys have seen and how you've been able to leverage that they have some type of personality or mascot that you can lean into? Or does it depend?
That's a good question. I guess what I would say is it has to be a mascot or a person that is relatable to the consumer. I think the thing with Jack, and Sheena will probably agree with me because she's done a lot more of the extensive research with our customers, is he is so notable. His voice is so iconic that you can be in the other room and not even see what's on TV, but it's a Jack in the Box commercial. So there's something there that becomes relatable to the customer, or for them, nostalgia for the older customers because they grew up with it. So I think it is something you could have, but you would have to make sure that that person or that mascot is completely relatable. And I think where you start to get into right now is a little bit of what you're seeing with like influencer marketing, in that they're not necessarily mascots, but they are representations of the brand. If you're choosing the influencers appropriately that are true fans of Jack and become representations of who you are, because then you're connecting with the customer in a very relatable way.
Yeah. What about you, Sheena?
I would probably actually say take a step back and think about what is it that makes your brand unique and memorable? Because at the end of the day, what is making Jack in the Box memorable is a mascot. But if your brand is, if it's something, Bala Bangles actually comes to mind for me. I don't know if you know what they are, but they're the hand weights, and their design and the visual of them is so unique that you immediately know what the product is when you see it, if you're a fan of the product, or as you become aware of the product. I would say think about what could make your brand memorable. And if it is a mascot, then that could be great. But I would not say it needs to be a mascot, because I do think, to Morgan's point, we've had to do a lot of work to evolve Jack to make sure he didn't feel dated. I think sometimes mascots can feel dated and they don't feel modern and of the time.
I mean, to that point, McDonald's pretty much discontinued Ronald McDonald, right?
Yeah. I think my guess is they probably couldn't evolve him to feel relatable to what Morgan is saying. And so you
don't relate to a clown with red hair? Why not?
I wouldn't automatically default to saying you need a mascot to be memorable.
No, that's helpful. And the reason I asked Morgan, I know you can speak to this too, is there's so much talk right now about, should social media brands have a voice where you actually have this account is by @ So, Sports Center went out and got Omar, who formerly was of House of Highlights and Bleacher Report, and now all the Sports Center voice and handle is kind of from this @Omar handle that you can speak from a lot. We see this a lot too, like in the female empowerment space. In the description of Instagram, it says this account is ran by X, even though there may be a team of 10 people, but it's kind of coming from this one siloed voice. So from a social media perspective too, like that is pretty fun on Twitter to have it all come from one singular voice.
I think people just want to relate to people.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, again, I go back to influencers. That's why influencer marketing has blown up. I mean, in the 6 years I've been here, it has changed significantly. And it's because people want to relate to other people, and they are more willing to listen to their Instagram followers than they are a brand. There's a little bit more trust there.
Yes.
So I think that's kind of why I lean a little more towards like having that unique voice and that personality, whether it's a mascot or an influencer. I think that's what is setting some brands apart when it comes to social.
Yes, so we still deal with is this an intern tweeting from this account issue, but we'll say that for a different day. So I've always wondered this. I want to get your thought. I know you guys live and breathe in it. As the society gets more health conscious, right? I just noticed this with McDonald's. They tried to come out with so many different menu items to kind of be everything to everybody. And I feel like an In-N-Out has done a good job. Like, we do burgers and French fries and shakes. Like, we're keeping our menu pretty small. How do you, I guess, attack that? And not to say you guys are making menu options on your side, but where people maybe want to have a more healthy choice, but also people love the curly fries and don't change my menu. I'm sure all fast food restaurants have to deal with that, but would love to start with Sheena, I guess, on that one. How you kind of approach that when it comes to your consumer.
Yeah, we actually saw something interesting happen even during COVID, where I think people were seeking out like comfort. They wanted that comfort food, something that was familiar to them. And so while health is absolutely still a trend and a thing, there was also people coming back to us because we were something that, had that comforting aspect to them, that they just wanted something so delicious and craveable in that moment. So we've actually been able, because of COVID, to recapture some guests. And so now we're really working towards keeping those guests coming back more. And while we will, stake our flag on the ground and say we are fast food and we're proud of it, like we are not trying to be something else.
Right.
We also do have a lot of variety. So as we look at our menu and as we evolve it, we are looking for uniquely Jack ways to bring things to the table to appease, maybe a more health-minded conscious person or a vegetarian. We are actually looking at things like Impossible patties, but made like just swap out your patty on a double Jack with an Impossible patty.
Yep.
And then just looking at those unique quality cues that we do have as a brand. We freshly crack our eggs. We hand slice our tomatoes. So there are things that Jack in the Box does that we'll highlight, but we're not going to try and go rehaul our menu and become all about salads.
Yep. Because I think that's tough too, right? If you try to be everything to everybody, then you all of a sudden lose your essence of who you are. Then your biggest ambassadors and people that are your brand loyalists are like, this is not the same restaurant that I love. Morgan, from an influencer standpoint and ambassador standpoint, what has worked really well for you all? Maybe a campaign or just maybe a drip influencer marketing strategy that you've seen work over time for your brand?
So I would say from an influencer standpoint, our biggest successes are we have an always on multi-layered influencer approach. So we're not always going out there and working with the big celebrity macro influencers. We may, when it comes to an appropriate campaign, like what we did with Jason Derulo a few months back with our virtual one in a milli virtual restaurant. That was appropriate because it felt authentic to Jason. But the stuff that I find the core that is really working the best is our always on influencers who we work with. We try to kind of negotiate a couple of them for a full year contract. So they're constantly always talking about Jack in the Box,
Smart.
Whether it be about a new limited time offer, just a core menu item. It might even just be a mobile app launch. They came and attended some of our Halloween events. I mean, they are what we call kind of our like Jack Pack of influencers. So I think that's the best way, is having a multi-layered approach that allows you to tap all different sizes, all different types of influencers. I mean, we negotiate out gamers, foodies, comedic influencers. I mean, they all have to be a part of the Jack tone, but also we like people who are authentically Jack fans too, because they go above and beyond. But ultimately, being able to have different groups of influencers for the right campaigns is the strongest influencer approach.
Yeah, I want to make sure our listeners like understand what you just said, because I think it's so many brands try to the get rich quick scheme. And the fact that you're working with influencers over time, it just makes it so much more genuine, because now this influencer, this person can talk about your brand in spades over a course of time, rather than just like all of a sudden, why are you talking about Jack in the Box like for the last 48 hours and then you never talk about him again? It just, the audience picks up on that's just not genuine.
It's authentic.
Exactly.
It's like, go for it.
No, I was going to say one thing that Morgan said that I wanted to emphasize was that authenticity. Because we even have admittedly tried to go the numbers game where you just get that person with those, 34 million followers, but they're all over the world. And Jack in the Box is truly in 22 states at the end of the day. And so when we do look for those people that are authentic fans and like have talked about us before and people know that, even though you may be reaching a smaller number, it still is a much more impactful reach.
It's so fun. I know, Morgan, you probably get this too, but people always ask me my advice on, and I always feel like it's a simplistic answer. I'm like, be authentic, be genuine, which seems like you're just saying that, you don't know, but it's such a true concept to marketing and social overall. If you get that wrong, then you start making a lot of mistakes. That being said, I wanted to ask both of you, start with Sheena, what do brands that you notice like get wrong? And we talked a little bit about trying to be everything for everybody and things like that, but are there some things out there you see other brands doing that make you cringe as a marketer, or you would wish you would see less of?
Yeah, I could go first. I mean,
I got mine too.
Yeah, let's do it.
Admittedly done it ourselves, but it's when you try to be cool too hard. There's an example out right now. I won't quote them by name, but they're using a TikTok song in their commercial, and it just feels so forced and cheesy and like just not authentic. And so I think it's like trying to be cool to what you think the young kids want. But again, I'd probably tie it back to understanding, what does your customer want? And then that will make you cool to them.
Yeah. And then Morgan, I'm sure you have some examples, but in social specifically, I just see every time there's a pop culture moment like Super Bowl or whatever, like every brand feels like they have to talk about it. And it's like, your brand, your consumer, that this is not your conversation to enter. You should just like be on the sidelines.
And you have to find the moments. And I literally just had this conversation with my team earlier, last week. And basically I was like, guys, we don't have to capitalize on every National Cheese Day or National Burger Day that there is. Go find the moments that are authentic to Jack in the Box. So we started talking about the night before Thanksgiving. We all know everyone's out having a good time on the night before Thanksgiving. They're going to come home. They're going to want a late night snack. Who are they going to call? Jack in the Box. So why don't we capitalize on the moments where it's not completely cluttered with all the conversations, because that's when you're going to stick out. Because you'll get lost in the noise of everyone wanting to talk about a burger on National Burger Day.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I was looking across your social platforms, and Congrats, your TikTok is killing it. So I think, even over your Instagram, more followers, things like that. So we'd love to hear what you've seen, and Morgan, you could probably take this one in terms of what's working really well for you, how you guys were able to hop on that and be unique with your brand.
Yes. And it's actually what I was thinking when you were saying earlier about like, what do you see other brands do that make you cringe? And I think this is one thing that I have learned especially in the influencer space. Allow the influencers to, like, I always say to them, your audience way better than I do. I'm not going to come in here and tell you as Jack in the Box how to make content from your channel, because you obviously have garnered all of this followings based on what it is. And we see a connection between your audience and our audience. When you try to overly brand in there, the content falls flat. So for TikTok specifically, we actually have, we went all in and we decided that we really wanted to emphasize on the Gen Z culture. I mean, to Sheena's point, I've crowdsourced her son multiple times because I even am like, I don't know what's going on sometimes in these trends. So we have allowed the consumers to really tell us how they like the content. And when we see content is performing well, especially when we use content creators who are authentic and we let them come up with concepts, we infuse our brand into it naturally, tap into those trends. That's the content that does really, really well. I may not understand what it is, but I really do trust my team to understand, do the research, and give me, their POV on why this piece of content should be doing what it is. That's
difficult too, because I think in a world that grew up on the 30-second commercial ad, I think the C-suite, maybe over 50, they can understand that and conceptualize it. But when you show them a 12-second TikTok trend that's like raw in nature, they're like, what the hell is this? This doesn't represent this multi-million-dollar company that I have. So it's good to hear that. It seems like the higher ups too are understanding, like, listen, I may not understand this spot, but I know this is what's working, and play the hits,
And it's all test and learn. Like, that's my biggest advice when it comes to social, especially in TikTok, because when we started ramping up our TikTok platform, we were just learning the platform. So we were trying new things. We were figuring out what was working, what wasn't working. When we saw certain content was working, we leaned in heavier to that. When we saw some of the content that we thought was going to do really great, maybe underperformed, we figured out a new way to do it and saw if that worked. And if it continued to not perform as well as the others, then we tapped out and moved on to another creative pillar. So it's continuing to learn what the audience is, especially in social, because it changes within every minute of the day. A new trend comes out. You have to be on the pulse of all that and be willing to potentially fail and learn from your mistake and make it better. Right. So,
and then Sheena, I want to get your thoughts on this too. So speaking of TikTok, I saw the recent TikTok of you guys taking a swing at McDonald's there with the ice cream machine being broken, which I thought was really funny, and it got incredible engagement. How often can you play in kind of that competitor lane when it comes to your marketing? Because I'm sure it's a lever that you can pull once in a while, but if you pull it too much, it can kind of come back to bite you. So how do you guys approach it when it comes to poking fun at the golden arches?
Not always the golden arches. Sometimes it's some kind of strange kingy guy out there. Honestly, when the timing and the product makes sense. So you saw things like with the milkshake one, for example, that opportunity made sense. Sometimes we look at things like breakfast all day. We truly are the ones that can own that. And so those are the kinds of things where we'll look for something that's truly an ownable distinguisher with us from the competition. And in those moments, that gives us an opportunity to kind of poke fun at them. Just like the sourdough. We are the original ones who brought sourdough to the menu. I believe it was 12 years ago. So when that competitor tried to come at us with some sourdough, we saw the opportunity to talk about our equity that we had built in that product.
I love it. And then you guys were talking before the program too about some fun initiatives you guys have coming up or you're excited about. So I think you were talking about monster tacos and a few things, but can you speak to just some of the fun stuff you guys are working on that we can be on the lookout for?
I can talk about monster tacos because it just happened and it was my weekend. So It was really fun though. And a super exciting campaign that we did. So as we've kind of we talked a lot about it. Really having authentic content and relatable, culturally relevant content is what does extremely well. So we have really started to build out our cultural calendar. And one of our big moments was Halloween. So we knew it's also Jack Box's favorite holiday. We were going to bring back one of the fan favorite monster tacos. So we had them off the menu for, I can't even remember how many years, but it was one of those that in the time I've been here, one of the top products that people have asked to bring back. And we're extremely upset when they were taken away. So we brought them back just in time for National Taco Day, which was last Monday, the 4th of October.
Yeah.
So prior to that, we actually had a media influencer and fan event in LA that kind of was a spooky, scary escape room type of thing. I mean, I went through the walkthrough. I was extremely scared because I'm not good at scary things. I will caveat that, but it was at the where Saw was filmed. So it was this old warehouse. We took it over. We invited media. Some of our influencers who we've built relationships with, and then some lucky fans. We gave them a chance to enter to win, and we had 5 lucky fans bring a +1. And they got to have this really immersive Jack experience that ultimately led them to learn that the Monster Taco was coming back. So they sat down, they had a curated menu made by our culinary team, but ultimately around those Monster Tacos. So it's something that we launched last week that continuously throughout this month, you'll see lots of content around Halloween, around the Monster Taco, because it's only available for a very limited amount of time. So,
which again, that's another brilliant thing I've seen. I mean, listen, Nike and Jordan have done this for years with, specific colorways that are limited releases. And then you see McDonald's with the McRib and things like that. And it sounds like with Monster Tacos, you guys landed to that as well. Do you guys have any other items, I guess, that you do that with and is super successful? Or is that kind of a more recent one that you all did?
That is the most recent one that I can remember.
But that's smart. It is smart to have those limited releases for sure.
We have some popular items that we'll bring back like once a year. So things like our popcorn chicken. And then we did 1 year of popcorn chicken. Then we brought it back with a spicy option that you could get, mixed together. Our spicy chicken strips. That's another one that we like to pulse in on limited time offers. And mozzarella sticks. So that was like something we had way, way back when. And people we'll actually social listen a lot to find out like what are those things people miss that want us to bring back. And that's how we've found some of these, like the mozzarella sticks. So we'll pulse those in for limited time runs to capture on that demand from the customer.
And I think it's so important because as marketers, like we just know that humans want what they can't have, right? So even though if these things are flying off the shelves, it actually makes sense to maybe take the short-term L to not get the sales from a product just to build up that demand again so people are excited for it. Because if it's always there for you, you don't really have as much of a, oh, I want that right now type deal. I would love to ask you guys some quick hit open fire questions, I guess I would say, here towards the end of the show. Morgan, I'll start with you. What's a book or a newsletter or a blog that you frequently read that helps you keep on the pulse of this ever-changing industry?
So I will say my books are probably not the most relevant to what I do, but I do read a lot. It's kind of my escape. Is reading. So I read a ton of like psychological thriller type of things, but I do listen to also a lot of book on tapes. But I most recently have been listening to Girl with No Job, is book on tape. And it's really interesting to see how she started from where she was and like where it's brought her to. So that's typically the type of books that I'll listen to. They're a little bit more of the autobiographies or biographies of certain people. I have the book on Princess Diana actually in my library right now that I have yet to start. It's my balance between my psychological thrillers and my self-help books. But that's kind of what I spend most of my time.
But that's important too. I think people to understand that from a social and real-time marketing standpoint, it's important to, on your off time, do something differently and not,
it's funny because a lot of people always joke and they're like, you don't ever post on social media. I'm like, I do it all day,
I do enough of that
every day. Like it's sometimes nice to like switch it up, and I'll listen to some, social media type books or marketing books, but I really do like to get away and have an escape listening to something else that puts my mind into like a whole nother world. So that's kind of how I balance the social media world and, the non-social media.
It is
world.
funny how you get, me and Sheena and I were just talking about this when we first were talking, was how those things inspire you too, like totally different, has nothing to do with your industry, but you pull a little nugget from it and it just like plays right into your day to day. So it's awesome.
I mean, I was driving listening to the Girl with No Jobs book on tape, and I came into the office the other day with like these ideas that just inspired me. And it was not even related to anything she was saying. It was just like, it triggered something. So it's nice to kind of have some of those marketing type of things, because then ideas come from everywhere.
Yep. I love it. Sheena, what about you? Anything that you're constantly reading or watching that keeps you up to date?
Yeah, I mean, just from a tactical business standpoint, I do get the QSR magazine, like the AM Jolt. So that's what like keeps my pulse on what's going on in our immediate industry. But then I really, really enjoy, kind of to what Morgan's saying, podcasts that get me outside of thinking about QSR. And one that I love is called Second Life. It's by Hillary Kerr, and she interviews all kinds of successful female entrepreneurs. And essentially they started their career one way, and then they, came up with a product and became an entrepreneur and are in their second life. So I enjoy listening to that, as a female businesswoman myself, for motivation and inspiration. And like you guys are saying, it gets you thinking in different ways. And then I have to give a plug to one book that our new CMO is having us all read right now. It's called Red Marketing. It's actually, I believe, written by former, I don't know if they're current, Morgan, keep me honest, leaders of Taco Bell and Yum Brands. And so they talk about just their marketing philosophy. And there's some very interesting nuggets in there that I would recommend for any marketers to read.
Very cool.
Very good.
What about, let's start with you, Sheena, favorite marketing tool that you could not live without?
My brain. No.
That was what I was going to say.
Well, yeah, clearly.
I think I truly, truly believe that your gut in marketing means so much. And so I don't know if it's a tool, and I don't know if this is the answer you're looking for, but getting to the point in your career where you can listen to, quickly react, and trust your gut is so important, and something that I'm going to tell you, you're going to need to survive in a marketing world, because we can't always have the time to do research and find the data. Sometimes you got to make those really quick gut reactions.
Yeah. And Morgan too, like it's not black and white. Like it's still, I love what Jeff Bezos says. If you know it's about 80% of the right decision, just go with it. You're never going to get to 100%. So use your gut and try your best, and hopefully it all works out. Testing
and learning. Yeah, you gotta.
I love it. Morgan, I'll start with you. Any advice for up and coming marketers?
Test and learn. That was exactly. It's like you teed me up for it. Especially in the social space.
Right.
You're gonna fail so many times with the pieces of content you put out there. I mean, you're putting tons of content out across multiple different platforms. Then all of a sudden, a new platform pops up. You cannot understand all of it, and you don't know all of the outside factors. So use your gut, test something, get the insights from that, and then evolve it. If it worked, great. Then now you can take that and learn this whole campaign could come out of something that memes, for example. I mean, you see them all over our platform. We tested them years ago. We scaled back on them, and then we tested them again. And now they're just really performing well. We know when we speak the honest truths and put it in meme format, our consumers absolutely love it. But it was a risk.
I think it was the last podcast I did, but I was just saying that, especially with large brands like a Jack in the Box, I think a lot of brands, they want the 85-page beautiful deck and the launch strategy and the 6-month launch window, and it's just a sandbox. You got to go in there and try. And I think people have this misconception, like, oh my God, did you see what Jack in the Box did 2 years ago in their first TikTok? Like nobody cares. Nobody's doing that much research. So I love that, Morgan. Just like try, test, and then before you know it, a year later, you're going to know exactly what's working with your audience.
I mean, sometimes we say it, Sheena and I joke all the time. sometimes we as marketers get in our own way. We're like marketing to marketers versus like remembering that a consumer isn't going to know the whole entire campaign story from start to finish. I can barely even remember the campaign from start to finish. And I've been in the weeds of it for 3 months.
That's the thing too. Like you get too close to your brand. Like, well, obviously everybody knows that Jack in the Box does X, Y, and Z. Like, no, they actually have no idea that's the thing. I was just on a call recently where they want to have like 6 call to actions. And I said, hey, we have one shot here, one takeaway from the consumer. So we have to be very strategic on that. I'll end with both of you. I'll start with Sheena, but any brands, I know we talked about brands that we cringe at, so I don't want to be too negative here on the show. Any brands that inspire you or that you follow that you would recommend others take a look at that just do some good work?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of told you at the beginning, some of the brands that I follow, my aesthetic is sometimes different than that of Jack in the Box. I do love Peloton. I actually love the brand, but I like some of their creators. So like Robin and Alex are some of my favorites that I love to follow. They're inspirational to me for different reasons. I also really like brands in our space. I think Chipotle is fascinating with everything that they're doing. A great brand to follow. And then a recent campaign, it's actually a brand that I have not previously followed, but I'm so intrigued by their campaign and I think it's so great, is 7-Eleven and their new Take It to 11 campaign. And the way that for one, the tagline is phenomenal. Love it. But then the way that they're showcasing just this lifestyle that 7-Eleven can bring you it feels real and authentic and so artistically engaging that's a new brand that I'm paying more attention to because of a campaign that they launched.
That's awesome. It is a brilliant tagline. I love that. Morgan, what about you?
So I was definitely give props to Chipotle, especially in the QSR space. They've been doing a great job. But a couple other ones that are food, but not in our world is I have been obsessed with Truff Sauce's social page.
Yes.
There is they do such a good job of using user-generated content that build, I have yet to buy it, but every single time I go on, I'm like, oh, I need to get, just is so craveable that they're doing an amazing job with that. I also, Milk Bar does another really good job with the craveability and user-generated content. I mean, we're in a content heavy world. So I'm a big advocate for leaning on our users to make content for us because it ends up being 10 times better than, stylized content. So I really like to see that type of stuff. And then I have my own personal meme account that everyone must follow because it's called Work in Social, they say. Yeah. And it is the most relatable, most entertaining account I want to share every single post because for someone in social media, you're like, I know exactly what they're
You could share a laugh or share a cry together based on whatever the meme may be,
Yeah, it gets me every single time.
I love it. Well, Sheena and Morgan, thank you so much for the time and all the good work you all are doing. I know when we first met, you both had some amazing energy you brought to our first session that we met up, so I wanted to make sure we talk shop. But again, congrats on all the success, and thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
All right.
Yeah,
Take care, y'all. Bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
All right, what an amazing episode by both Sheena and Morgan from Jack in the Box. Thank both of them, Will, and good get there by the great producer, Will Kelly. I think some really good stuff. A few takeaways that just the top of the head was when Morgan said, sales overnight, brand over time. I mean, you're speaking my love language at this point, Morgan. I mean, just absolutely brilliant when it comes to that because I think so many people, like we talked about a little bit there mid-show, Will, are trying to get that, get quick, rich scheme, especially with influencers and not being genuine or authentic with that lever you can pull as a marketer.
I think the biggest takeaway for me off the top was they both, and it seems company-wide, have a really strong understanding of their brand, what they want to say, and how they want to say it.
And then secondly, Sheena, what I love, her and I were talking about this before the show, and then she brought it up during the show as well. You may not be your customer. So, as you go out there and you market your brand, if you're marketing a certain type of brand and maybe you're a 42-year-old, male, maybe the brand is not really trying to go after it. And listen, a lot of brands are going after the 18 to 35. That is the coveted demographic. So if you fall on the end of that spectrum, there's certain people, there's certain things that 18-year-olds like that 36-year-old people don't. And that's important to just have that self-awareness. So some great insight by both of them. Really enjoyed talking shop. And I listen, Will, they're in San Diego. There's no reason we can't get a networking group here together here soon and say what's up.
I will say, I think they have the best fries in the game, the curly fries.
I agree.
I did want to mention one thing. I think the conversation you guys had about, and we fall victim to this, like getting too involved in your own brand. Like everybody knows that we posted 17 times last month. Nobody knows that. You know that. And so you have to kind of put on your customer hat when you're making those
this
decisions.
is going to be super, only you and I will probably know what we're talking about. And some of our former clients, current clients, is our point system here at STN, how we, sell our content per se with our content packages. I think at one point, everybody knows points. Like, no, they don't, dude. Yeah, we know because we eat, live, and breathe like this, like terminology of how we charge for creative and things like that. But, you have to create this explainer video to show people what it means because people don't remember, even if you told them a few times. So you got one shot, especially with the big campaign. You have one shot at your consumer and one takeaway, and what is that going to be? And just being self-aware about that. So great get there, Will. Appreciate all the help setting that podcast up for us. As always, thanks to Dave Furker for all his help setting up for the show as well. This has been yet another edition of the Business of Social podcast. Make sure to rate and review 5 stars if you would. My name is David Brickley, and this has all been powered by STN Digital.